Welcome to Move the Chains with Jonathan Rivers. Here's your host, Jonathan Rivers.
Let there be football. Welcome to Move the Chains. I'm your boy, Jonathan Bam Rivers. Heavy NFL here today. I want to talk to you first about the Atlanta Falcons. And you know what happened. Kirk Cousins, Michael Phenix Jr. I talked about all this stuff when this show was in its inception. The very first one that aired. And a lot of Falcons fans are going to be upset at me, but I'm just going to let you know, it's not just that I said it before it was going to happen. I didn't necessarily predict the future. I just looked at the past and allowed it to do the work for me. And then second down, the Detroit Lions. A lot of people are concerned about them because of all the injuries. And I'm going to tell you why I think they resemble another NFC power, and it may not be as positive as you think it is in terms of why they're just alike. And my nonsense narrative, man, listen, Josh Allen may win the MVP, but I keep hearing people say Josh Allen's on another level. And I'm going to tell you why he's not on another level. And it's not a nonsense narrative in a negative way. It's going to be me praising Josh Allen on why he's not on another level. And lastly, in the final drive, there's a quarterback in the NFC right now that's heading one of the best teams in football that has been legit since college, and it was because he lost his job. I'll tell you who. And all that and more right here on Move the Chains. But you know what time it is, man. Let's kick it off with first down. All right. The Atlanta Falcons, and when you see the lower third comes up, it's going to say a benching in the Benz. So if you haven't heard, Kirk Cousins has been benched for Michael Phenix Jr. Now, side note, before I show you this video that I want to show you, I said on this show when the draft happened that Michael Phenix Jr. being drafted by the Atlanta Falcons was the best decision the Falcons could have ever made, because people don't like to draft quarterbacks when they've presumably got their quarterback in hand. A lot of times they like to wait until it's too late. And I said because the Falcons did this, it was a phenomenal move because they were trying to win now and they were trying to win in the future. And most of the teams don't have that foresight, but the Falcons did. But I want to go back to April, and there was something that I said about the Kirk Cousins signing that got a lot of people upset. Run it, Ernest. And if you're telling me now that Kirk Cousins is the quarterback to get the Atlanta Falcons over the hump, my question to you is, well, where's your proof? Where's the precedent that's been set? He's been a good quarterback, but he hasn't been a great quarterback. He hasn't been elite. Nowhere near an MVP conversation, couple of Pro Bowls, but Kirk Cousins is above average. And while he's been an upgrade at the position, I still don't think it makes the Atlanta Falcons a viable contender in the NFC. You're going to have to show me better than you can tell me. You're going to have to show me better than you can tell me. That's something my mom used to tell me all the time when I was younger. So social media, of course, always has its opinions, and I love it, though. I'm not knocking it. I love it. I ask questions and answer questions that you guys put on social media. But I just want to give you a reply that somebody had from that take that I had in April of this year. Austin said, that was a terrible and quite limited take on the Cousins signing. I hope your following episodes are better because your analysis thus far seems somewhat pedestrian. Well, I guess your boy is just a pedestrian, and pedestrian may be the best thing to be. Now, let me say this. I don't want to sit here and act as if this is a Kirk Cousins problem exclusively, because I do remember what the Atlanta Falcons were before Kirk Cousins got there. They weren't good at all. So presumably, they still have a shot to win the NFC South or possibly make a wild card berth, depending upon what the Washington Commanders do. But this is all I have to say. Why is it that the take that I had, Kirk Cousins being an upgrade but not being somebody who can help lead you to a Super Bowl and make you a championship contender, why was that the outlandish take? Why wasn't the outlandish take the take where people thought that he'd come in and take this team to new heights? Because if I told you that he's been a quarterback over the 11 or 12 years of his career that has had one playoff win, that hasn't been able to get you over that hump, that has had the same weapons as he did in Minnesota, why is that not the take that goes against conventional wisdom? All I did was look at his past history and project what it would be now. Could he have had a season where he turned everything around? Absolutely. But the most consistent thing that Kirk Cousins has been in his career, in my estimation, is inconsistent. And I want you to know that it's not just a Kirk Cousins problem. It's a lot of players in the NFL. A lot of players in the NFL have that issue, ladies and gentlemen. They can be great one minute and then they can be terrible the next minute. That's why the creme de la creme, the cream of the crop, the top tier elite players in this league are elite, not just because they're better than everybody, but they're better than everybody on a consistent basis. So now transitioning to Michael Phenix Jr. As I look at the benching that took place, because Raheem Morris did bench Kirk Cousins, I'm telling myself, regardless of what Michael Phenix Jr. does, in my estimation, this is a great opportunity. Remember, this is a 24-year-old rookie. So he's not your typical rookie in terms of his age. I'd put him in that Bo Nix category. And Bo Nix was ready. And I'm telling you this, I don't think because Michael Phenix Jr. didn't start the season that he wasn't ready. I've heard a lot of rhetoric where people are saying, well, he's probably not ready. That's why he's not playing. Well, he's not playing because that wasn't the plan. And with Kirk Cousins in his last, 4 or 5 games, has thrown 1 touchdown and 9 interceptions, and I think the Falcons had to make this move. Now you're going to see what you get out of Michael Phenix Jr. Whether you make the playoffs or not, you drafted a rookie who was experienced, who had been to multiple programs in college, who can spin the football, whose acumen is off the charts, and you're going to see what you get from him in the final 3 games of the season. If he helps lead you to the playoffs, icing on the cake. If he doesn't, now you know what you have. And I'm going to tell you what's better for Michael Phenix Jr. in my estimation as well. The fact that he's coming in sort of a stressful situation because this is the Falcons season. Now, what do the Falcons need to do to make sure that Michael Phenix Jr. plays at the highest level? They need to make sure that they run the football, play effective defense, and make sure that they don't turn the ball over. Make sure, Mr. Robinson, the offensive coordinator for the Falcons, that you put him in a proper position. And I'll say this as well before we go to break. I want to look at the University of Georgia and compare them to Atlanta. What have I been saying the whole year about the Bulldogs? That they have a phenomenal team, but I feel like their offensive coordinator, Mike Bobo, always tried to make Carson Beck the Heisman and didn't put him in position to be successful, in my estimation, by leaning on that run game, using their tight ends in play action, and then taking the occasional deep shot to those receivers who could have been some of the best in the country. But when you tried to put the ball in his hands every other play, he was one of the most turnover-prone quarterbacks in college football. And then I look at the Atlanta Falcons, and I get the same feeling. You didn't do a lot of play action. You had them in the pistol formation a lot, and that's your prerogative. You know your team better than I do. All I'm saying is Georgia and Atlanta look similar to one another, and now Georgia has lost their quarterback, presumably for the college football playoff, and the Falcons have lost their starting quarterback due to ineffective play. All right, when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about the Detroit Lions, and I'm going to tell you why I think they're just like another NFC power, but it's not the compliment you might think it is. Back with more Move the Chains right after this. All right, welcome back to Move the Chains, guys. And before I get into second down, I want to take this time, as always, to thank my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for the opportunity to host Move the Chains. Secondly, I want to thank all the fans who are commenting on social media. I want to thank everybody that's taking time to watch on the Sports Leader WXTX Fox 54. The show is continuing to grow. Its popularity is growing, and I'm grateful, truly grateful. And last but not least, to the best production crew in the business. Pre-show time is phenomenal. I get an opportunity to, run through my thoughts, let the production team know exactly what I'm doing, my directors, my producers of the show, the social media team that's handling everything for the YouTube page. So shout out to everybody that has anything to do with Move the Chains on the back end. All right, but you know what time it is. Let's kick off second down. Now, I want to take you back to a time with the San Francisco 49ers when they had a coach named Mike Singletary. You remember the Hall of Fame linebacker for the Chicago Bears, who was the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers. And he had a press conference that's legendary, in my opinion, because Vernon Davis, at that time, their all-pro tight end, just walked off the field, and he said, hey, we want winners. He banged his fist on the table. Now, you may be asking yourself what this has to do with the Lions. Just give me a second. So after that, enter Jim Harbaugh, because the 49ers were not good. As much as I love Mike Singletary, they weren't winning under Mike Singletary, and they brought in Jim Harbaugh. And Jim Harbaugh brought in an identity. Smash mouth, hard-nosed football. Ended up leading them to a Super Bowl. Won an NFC championship. But Jim Harbaugh left San Francisco and enters Kyle Shanahan. And while Kyle Shanahan is a quarterback guru, a great offensive innovator, they didn't lose that same smash mouth type aura about themselves. But what does San Francisco deal with all the time? They dealt with injuries. And even though they won a couple of NFC championships, even though they've been to a couple of Super Bowls and lost both to the Kansas City Chiefs, injuries were consistent with the 49ers. There was never a time to, not only were they not injured, but they were injured when it came to their best players, Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams, Dre Greenlaw. A lot of people missed time. Bosa, Deebo Samuel missed time. So as they were aging, we were asking ourselves, man, did their championship window close? Now, I want to ask yourself, are the Detroit Lions the new San Francisco 49ers? Because I want to show you this graphic. The litany of injuries that the Lions have sustained, especially on the defensive side of the football, has been alarming, astounding, whatever word you want to say to describe the amount of injuries. Now, again, I'm not sitting here crying for the Lions because everybody has to deal with injuries. The NFL is a war of attrition. The game of football is a war of attrition. What I'm telling you is that the Lions have that same identity that the San Francisco 49ers have. Dan Campbell is a former NFL tight end. And as you can see here, the Lions defense, and Aaron Glenn, their defensive coordinator, plays a pressure defense. But when you're missing 65, 70% of your starting defense, you have to ask yourself, do we change or do we try to get the second-tier guys up to speed? Now, I'm not sitting here saying the Detroit Lions can't go on and still compete and win the NFC North or go to the Super Bowl. I think they've built an infrastructure for things like this. But, man, injuries matter. Now, the question I ask you is the byproduct of having this culture worth it? Now, I'll always say, one, a team has to have an identity, and two, a team needs to be physical. And Detroit fits that bill. But I'm telling you, based on the way Dan Campbell is wired and based on the way his team plays, don't look at this as an aberration. I never predict injuries, nor do I hope they happen. But I understand the way that the Lions play, this may be something that they're dealing with for the foreseeable future. And if that's the case, will they be like the San Francisco 49ers? They're able to get to the mountaintop, but for some reason, they're not able to accomplish the ultimate goal because the wrong injury at the wrong time bites them. Remember, the San Francisco 49ers a few years ago literally didn't have a quarterback that could play in the NFC title game against the Eagles. The Lions are understanding what that feels like right now. I love the fact that they're physical, but you also have to understand that with being physical and with being the way they are and having the culture that they have, there are always unintended consequences, and Detroit's dealing with it right now. All right, when we come back from the break, Josh Allen's on another level. That's what I keep hearing. I think it's a nonsense narrative, but I'm going to be complimentary of Josh Allen. You'll see what I mean when we come back. I'm going to move the chains right after this. And welcome back into Move the Chain. So there's a lot of rhetoric that's going on here. And what I'm about to do, I'm going to preface it now. I'm going to talk about somebody that is having a phenomenal season, and I'm going to compliment them. But I think some of the compliments people are giving him are nonsense. I just wanted to preface that before I get into it. But it's time for my favorite segment of the show. It's time for the nonsense narrative. Now, the reason I wanted to give you that before I actually came to the segment is because I feel like I have to preface statements a lot of times because I always want to make sure that people understand what I'm saying so they can then agree or disagree with what I'm saying. So my lower third is about to come up, and you're going to say it says Josh Allen is on another level. Now, you may be saying to yourself, well, the nonsense narrative, it's saying if it's on another level, that means that he's not playing well, and how can you watch football and know football and think that he's not playing at a high level? No. The nonsense narrative is that he's playing on another level as if he hasn't done this before. Josh Allen, since he entered the NFL, has been a high-level quarterback. Now, the one thing I've never called Josh Allen is elite. And I haven't called it that because there are peers, Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes, that have both won MVPs. And Mahomes, we know has won 3 Super Bowls and 3 Super Bowl MVPs. So while you have peers that have done more than you have in that regard, that's why I've said Allen hasn't yet been elite. But he's always played at a high level. And I told you, quarterback play is indicative of team success, but it's not the sole reason a team wins or loses. This is a game that has 3 phases. So I'm not going to sit here and say Josh Allen hasn't made a Super Bowl because he hasn't played well. The only thing I know that in the playoffs, the Bills have had to play the Kansas City Chiefs, and even with Josh Allen, who's played phenomenal in some of those games and could have played better in others, they haven't gotten the job done. But I do have something I want to show you here. And I'm not showing you this because I'm trying to turn this into an MVP conversation. I'm not. Remember, I've told you on this show multiple times, I'd be excited if Josh Allen wins the MVP because he was my preseason pick to do so. All I'm saying is if you look at this graphic, the green shows you that Lamar Jackson is also having a phenomenal season. Lamar Jackson is somebody who is taking the league by storm the same way Josh Allen is. So why is Josh Allen the presumed favorite and the presumptive favorite to win MVP? And that's what I want to talk about. The narrative on how MVPs sometimes are facilitated and how they're chosen. Because coming into the season, a lot of people's expectations were that the Bills weren't going to be as good because they lost Stephon Diggs. So I want to stop right there. Not only did I say on this show that the Bills, I thought, and Josh Allen would be better without Stephon Diggs, And the reason I said it was because if you have a Stephon Diggs who is putting a quarterback in a precarious position by coming to the sideline and saying, look, bro, I'm open. I need you to throw me the football, regardless of what the defense is giving you. It doesn't allow the quarterback to be who the quarterback needs to be, and that's a surveyor of the field, to understand what the defense is giving him and be able to put the ball where he needs to put it. Now Josh Allen doesn't have that, and Josh Allen is not void of talent, ladies and gentlemen. That's not me taking away from Josh Allen. I think it's the same rhetoric that people tried to say with Aaron Rodgers, where Aaron Rodgers has never had a number one or a first-round wide receiver, but he had Jordy Nelson, Greg Jennings, he had Driver, he had Randall Cobb. He had all these guys that were Pro Bowl and all-pro receivers. He added to that, but they were good players. The same thing with Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. This is a very good team offensively, and I think to say Josh Allen is playing on another level is to make it seem as if he hasn't done it before. What he has done this year that he hasn't done before is take care of the football. So in that regard, I agree that he's on another level. But production, being one of the best dual-threat quarterbacks in the NFL, has never been an issue for Josh Allen. This season, to me, has been like any other season. The only difference is a lot of people didn't expect it. All right, when we come back from the break, it'll be the final drive, and I'll tell you why there's a quarterback in the NFL who's been legit since being benched in college. I'll explain more when we get back. More Move the Chains right after this. And welcome back into the show. This is the final segment of the show, so you know what that means. It's time for the final drive. Jalen Hurts got benched in the national championship game while at Alabama for Tua Tagovailoa. Came back the next season and came into a game when Tua got hurt and helped lead his team to an SEC championship, and then transferred to Oklahoma to become one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and has thus been, since then, starting quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles, has played in the Super Bowl, and has been an MVP candidate. He's always been legit, and the reason he's been legit is because he's been able to handle any type of adversity. But that's when you get somebody who's a son of a coach and somebody who's strong in his faith and understand what it takes to be a winner. All right, don't forget, you can not only catch Move the Change right here on the Sports Leader WXTX Fox 54, but also on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. It's at @move_the_change. Make sure you love the show, subscribe, leave a comment. All that type of stuff is appreciated. All right, for the best dang production crew in the business, it's been another banger. I'm Jonathan Bam Rivers, and congratulations to the Carver Tigers of Columbus, Georgia, for winning the two-way Georgia State Championship. Way to go, young men and coaches. All right, until next time right here on Move the Chains, God bless.